Hi everyone! Welcome to today's episode of our podcast. Yes, I know I said our podcast because we have here some visitors, Mr. Rommel, Mr. Kian, Mr. Alvin, and Mr. Jose, who will of course be joining our discussion. So first and foremost, I would like to ask you guys, how are you? How's life lately?
It's fine, Miss Jai. However, academically challenging.
I know, right? Being a political science student is never and has never been that easy. But guess what? We're on our third year of college now.
Yes, Miss Jai, time flies so fast indeed.
Congratulations to us for surviving, though. So, this calls a celebration, I guess, or are we too early to celebrate yet? So, as I start up, Mr. Rommel, I want to know, how do you see yourself 5 to 10 years from now?
I think I may be starting an interest in running for office. Maybe I'll start being a barangay captain of our barangay soon. That is basically it.
Oh, that's nice, Mr. Rommel. You know what? During the pictorials for our yearbook when I was a senior high school, I didn't know what I wanted to become 5 to 10 years from now. The only decision I was sure of was I will and I should study politics. So I had this politician outfit for my pictorials, and my friends are teasing me that maybe one day I will be the next president of the republic. However, becoming the head of the state and government or belonging to the executive branch is not that easy.
But we never know.
Anyways, for our today's podcast, we will be discussing the Section 1 to Section 6 of the Article 7 of the 1987 Philippine Constitution, which is the Executive Department. Executive agencies have the power to enact laws within the scope of their authority, conduct investigations, and enforce the laws that they promulgate accordingly. The day-to-day enforcement and administration of federal laws is in the hands of the various executive departments, created by the Congress to deal with specific areas of national and international affairs. Section 1 of the Article 7 of the 1987 Constitution vests executive power on the President of the Philippines. The President is the head of the state and the head of the government, and functions as the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Philippines. As Chief Executive, the President exercises control over all the executive departments, bureaus, and offices.
So for you, Miss Jai, what other authorities comprise the executive department?
The executive branch is composed of the President and the Vice President, who are elected by direct popular vote and serve a term of 6 years. The Constitution grants the President authority to appoint his cabinet. Moreover, these departments form a large portion of the country's bureaucracy.
So, Miss J, what are the examples of these departments?
Some examples of the departments that is under the executive branch are the Department of Education, the Department of Justice, and the Department of Defense, among others. So, moving forward to the next section, becoming the president requires qualifications and credibility. The Constitution itself states in the Article 7, Section 2 that no person may be elected president unless he is a natural-born citizen of the Philippines, a registered voter, able to read and write, at least 40 years of age on the day of the election, and a resident of the Philippines for at least 10 years immediately preceding such election.
May I ask a question that why is it important that the age must be 40 years old?
So, Mr. Alvin, it has been provided in the Constitution itself, and we all know that the Constitution is the highest law of the land. Thus, I think maybe within these years of age, there has been enough experiences and dilemmas that he witnessed in the country. Anyone can become a president or vice president. However, there are standards and qualifications the Constitution has provided to determine if the candidate is eligible to hold the office. There are more to that thorough and specific qualifications, whether a candidate has the capacity to lead, is eligible to be trusted, has the integrity among others, and so on. So, there's this one quote that has been living in my head for years now. Are you familiar with the movie Turbo? There was this scene, there were, drop the line, no dream is too big for a dreamer that is too small. As long as we are determined to reach what we aim, we are allowed to follow or to have these big ambitions. We never know, one day one of you guys will work at the executive department or maybe become one of the prominent persons in the country. Now for the discussion in the section 3, we will give the floor to Mr. Kian.
The Section 3 of Article 7 of the 1987 Philippine Constitution state, there shall be a Vice President who shall have the same qualification and terms of office and be elected with. As we discussed earlier, the Vice President has same qualifications of President. And I've discussed this again, no? A natural-born citizen, 40 years old, resident at least 10 years before the day of election, able to read and write, and a registered voter. And he may be removed from the office in the same manner as the president. So, what are the requirements or grounds to remove from office? Under the Article 11, Section 2 of the 1987 Philippine Constitution, the President, the Vice President, the members of the Supreme Court, the members of the Constitutional Commission, and the Ombudsman may be removed from office on impeachment, conviction, culpable violation of the Constitution, treason, bribery, graft and corruption, and other high crimes, or betrayal of public trust. The Vice President may be appointed as a member of the Cabinet. Such appointment requires no confirmation.
Hello, Mr. Kian. I have a question. Why is it the appointment of the Vice President requires no confirmation?
Yes, Mr. Jose, thank you for your question. The Vice President requires no confirmation because the Vice President is the second highest national official elected by the people. And the Vice President should possess the same qualification as the President. He is elected in the same manner, in the same term as the President. He may be appointed appointed in the Cabinet, and again, there's no such requires for confirmation. The office of the Vice President is very important because the President, when his position becomes vacant, either due to resignation, removal, or impeachment, incapacitation, or death, the Vice President take the position. I hope I answered very well to your question, Mr. Jose.
Thank you for that explanation, Mr. Kian.
And that's it for the Section 3 of the Article 7 of the 1987 Philippine Constitution. For the next section, the Section 4, hello, Mr. Rommel.
The contents of Article 7, Section 4 are basically the due process of when does the candidate became officially the President and Vice President. The content also states the role of the Legislative and the Supreme Court in electing such offices, and it also provides the length of terms of both offices, and basically that's it. And I would like to encourage questions on this matter.
So, Mr. Rommel, it has been stipulated in the Section 4 that the Congress takes rules on this matter. What is the role of the Supreme Court on the election of the President?
The Senate and Congress is the one to determine the authenticity of the execution thereof. Lastly, they are the last canvassers of the votes that has been transmitted by the regional board of canvassers from each city.
Mr. Rommel, when the votes are tied, who decide who won?
One of them shall forthwith be chosen by the vote of majority of all the members of both houses of Congress, voting separately. To sum up the discussion of Article 7, Section 4, these are the following contents. In the first paragraph, the section talks about how the President and the Vice President be voted upon and how many years the term of office is. It also states when does the term starts and ends. In the second paragraph, it solely focuses on the scope and duration of the Vice President's term of office. The paragraph that follows talks about the date of the election. And lastly, the highest votes accumulated shall be determined as the winner. And the task of canvassing the result lays upon the Congress. Furthermore, any challenge on the results and ruling or qualifications of the candidate is vested upon the Supreme Court.
Thank you for the discussion, Mr. Rommel. Next up is the discussion on the Section 5. We have here Mr. Jose. Hello, Mr. Jose.
Hello, Ms. Jhirreh. So, Article 7, Section 5 of the Philippine Constitution states that before they enter on the execution of their office, the President, the Vice President, or the acting President shall take the following oath or affirmation. The official start of their single 6-year terms of office is at noon of June 30 following the election. They are required to take the prescribed oath before they enter on the execution of their office. This is why, customarily, their oath-taking is scheduled to take place a few minutes before 12 noon on June 30. There is no prohibition on taking the oath days earlier.
So, Mr. Jose, why is it important to conduct oath-taking?
Because it is provided in the Constitution itself. The most important aspect of the inauguration is the oath-taking. Invoking God's help, the President and the Vice President swear to faithfully and conscientiously preserve and defend the Philippine Constitution, execute its laws, do justice to every man, and consecrate itself to the service of the nation. So the focal point of the inauguration should be the solemn commitments embodied in the oath of office. The oath emphasizes fidelity to the Constitution and the rule of law as the embodiment of the ideals of liberty, justice, and equality. It also specifically states that justice must be done to every person and that serving the nation is a sacred commitment. The choice of venue is not provided for in the Constitution. So, our current President, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., and Vice President Sara Duterte have chosen the National Museum and Davao City, respectively, as the venues for their inauguration.
Speaking of the inauguration, what was the highlight of the inauguration of President Bongbong Marcos when he had the event?
So the highlight of his inauguration was his inaugural address that lasted for about 25 minutes. President Marcos enumerated his priorities as the president, such as the economy, environment, infrastructure development, and the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, and giving a preview of his presidency will look like. I hope I made my explanation on the Section 5 of the Article 7 is clear. Thank you, guys.
Sure, Mr. Jose, it was all clear and concise. Thank you for that.
Now we are down to the last section that we will be discussing for today's episode of our podcast. Let us all welcome Mr. Alvin.
Hello, everyone, and to those who are listening to this podcast. I'm Alvin James, and I'll be discussing the Article 7 of Section 6, which is the salary and emoluments of the President and Vice President. It's stated in this article that the President shall have an official residence.
So, Mr. Alvin, can you tell us what is the official residence of the President?
The President have an official residence which is known as Malacañang Palace, and it is located in Manila, in District of San Miguel. Just a short, amazing history about this Malacañang, that in major government building in Manila, this structure is the one that only survived in a heavy artillery bombing during the Second World War. So this palace continues to be centerpiece of the upscale district of San Miguel, spared by the war. And in 1978 and 1979, it was remolded and rebuilt by the First Lady Imelda Marcos during the tenure of Ferdinand Marcos. The next clause that I'll be discussing is that the salary of the President and the Vice President shall be determined by law and shall not be decreased during their tenure.
So, Mr. Alvin, I'm curious about what is the exact salary of the President and the Vice President. But first, can you tell us about the salary of the President?
According to the Article 18, Section 17 of the 1987 Constitution, it is stated that the salary of President is 300,000 pesos, and the Vice President is 240,000 pesos. These salaries cannot be decreased during the tenure of the President and the Vice President. It increases of the salary take effects only after the expiration of the term of the incumbent, which that increase was been approved. Under the Executive Order number 611 of the Department of Budget and Management in March 14, 2007, where President Arroyo implemented a 10% increase over the basic monthly salary of the civilian government or the personnel whose imposition are covered by compensation and position classification system as June 30, 2007. Moving on to the next clause, that they shall not receive during their tenure and any other emolument from the government or any other sources.
Okay, Mr. Alvin, I'm so sorry, but I have a lot of questions in my mind. So, speaking about emolument, what do you mean by emolument?
An emolument is a compensation based on time and the length of the activity from the employment, service, or holding office, and it is generally used in a legal context. Emolument is derived from the Latin term emolumentum, which could mean either effort or labor or benefit, gain, profit. As a conclusion, I'll reiterate that they shall not receive during their tenure and other emolument from the government or any other source. So that is all about for the Article 7 of the Section 6 of the 1987 Constitution.
So that concludes our productive discussion for today, guys. I am so grateful for your presence and for positively responding to my request to share your knowledge, your expertise, your understanding about the sections 1 to 6 of the Article 7, which is the Executive Department of the 1987 Philippine Constitution. So before we end, guys, I would like to know, kamusta? How are you? How was the discussion?
The discussion is very well enlightenment for us, and even to the listener. I think it will be helpful to someday come up the Constitution that they will enlighten also the provided articles of the said section.
Well, thank you for that, Mr. Alvin. Next up, Mr. Rommel, how was the discussion? How did you feel today?
Indeed, it was a fruitful discussion. I hope the listeners learn from what we have discussed, and like all good things, it has an end, which is very sad. But next time, let us share knowledge, and that's all.
So it was so good to exchange knowledge and relevant informations, right? So, Mr. Kian, How are you? How was the discussion for you?
Well, in my part, Miss Jai, I really learned a lot from the discussion after exchanging knowledge and different conversations about the executive department. I hope this will serve as a lesson for our future endeavors.
Wow, what a great word you have, Mr. Kian. And that's it, guys. I hope you have a great day ahead. And once again, thank you for joining us for today's episode of our podcast. And I hope you guys had learned a lot. That's it, guys. This has been Jhirreh.
I'm Kian.
And Alvin.
And I'm Rommel.
And Martin.
We wish you well and stay safe, everyone. Bye, guys.